Hey, good morning, everybody. This is People of Substance by LemonSkies, and my guest today is Jen Wasem, rhymes with awesome. I asked her, double check. Jen is the founder of Generous Living Philanthropy. She's very involved in philanthropic space, often talks about giving trends, generosity, obviously, and nonprofit operations. But before we jump in and I ask you questions about your work, can you please tell us about your hat?
So it's obviously a Diet Coke hat. I am a Diet Coke lover. I drink way too much of it. And now it's sort of been, now it's sort of the thing that people give me gifts on. Like I get a Diet Coke ornament, and Diet Coke sweatshirt, and Diet Coke t-shirt, and all the things. And my one of my first, it was actually, nothing's ever outperformed it, nor I don't think it could. One of my first mega viral posts was about Diet Coke. It was about kindness at the McDonald's drive-thru while getting a McDonald's Diet Coke. And so that sort of launched this LinkedIn chatter, I guess, around Diet Coke. And I did try giving it up for a while, and here we are.
Yeah. Well, I had to ask the question because that's actually one of the first things I learned about you, and we kind of connect on the caffeine level, but we just use different sources for it.
Yeah.
So can you tell me a little bit about the work you do and Generous Living Philanthropy? And if we could talk a little bit about generosity as a concept, what does it mean to you?
What a great question. So Generous Living Philanthropy, it started, I think, just a lot of ways, the same way that a lot of companies and efforts and consulting start, just by sort of my own frustration with, what's going on in the sector, what I was seeing and what I was living, honestly, as well. And so it really started out as, how can it just be an open space for conversation? That's really what I wanted it to be. I wanted it to be, and still want it to be, just a really safe space to talk about philanthropy. And then it really did move into more of the consulting, as far as organizational consulting and a lot of one-on-one leadership coaching, what I just love. And generosity, it's just, I grew up in a family of generosity, and I'm so grateful for that. And I didn't understand growing up that was unique. I mean, because it was just how we lived and how my mom still lives. And I worked with a gentleman once, and he left me a note on my desk, and he wrote, "Dear Generous." And I go by Jen, and I went to him and I said, what is this spelling? I don't know. What are we doing here? And he's like, I just think that, when I think of you, I think of generosity, and I think that it's a fun play on your name. So that's really how it started. I love it. It is my happy place. It is my happy place for conversation and for challenge, to be honest with you, and to get to know people, and all different topics. I love helping with people who want to go into the nonprofit sector. We hear that all the time, right? Like, I'm in my second part of life and I want to give back, right? And so really working with people to make that transition, but to also have realistic expectations, right? Like, nonprofit sector isn't, kumbaya every day, right? I mean, there are revenue goals. Right. There's staffing, like there's, there should be metrics and strategy, not always. And so I really enjoyed coming alongside people who've, wanted to sort of leave the for-profit life and move into the nonprofit life as well.
Well, and it's interesting that you comment that, if you don't like asking for money, frontline fundraising probably isn't for you.
I am constantly flabbergasted at how many people in nonprofit leadership roles, it's never dawned on them that part of their role is to fundraise,
right?
To ask for money. And I've worked with a few, and it is an ongoing challenge. And so I always, when I work with organizations and I work one-on-one with leadership, let's just set that as the expectation from the beginning.
Yeah.
Right? Like that is literally your whole job. That like this is your job. And I remember I was speaking with one gentleman who didn't want to do it. He didn't want to ask for money as the executive director. It doesn't make me comfortable. And I was like, okay, then we're going to have to do some unlocks here about how do you look at money?
Yeah.
What do you think of money? Right. And we did a lot of that sort of like unearthing, and we had some great unlocks in that. And then he definitely felt more empowered to move forward, and then actually became a great fundraiser. But it's baffling to me that sometimes there's a complete loss that you have to fundraise.
Right. Right. Well, and the same thing, fundraising is also not party planning. Like peer-to-peer events, that's actually a conversation I had this week. It's not about centerpieces. It's not about those types of things. How is soliciting? Where's the money coming from? What's the game plan?
Exactly. And, when I was with the American Cancer Society, I created Real Men Wear Pink. And that still brings in a great amount of money every single year. And I still am challenged by peer-to-peer in general. And I just posted about it the other day. That's great if you have a great campaign in March, a peer-to-peer campaign in March. What I want to know as an organization, how are you engaging these people in the fall? What is your long-term plan? Otherwise, you're just on a treadmill. You're just churning donors. You're just churning peer-to-peer.
Right.
And what does that do for sustainability?
Right.
What does that do for long-term revenue? What does that do for thought leadership? What does that do for board development? It does absolutely nothing. Right. So I'm always a fan of, okay, if you want to do peer-to-peer, right? Because you read about it and somebody had some great experience, and they raised doodles of money. Let's plan for the month or for the 2 weeks, but then let's do our backup planning as well. Well, what does the next year look like? That's really where the goodness lies.
Yeah, I'm shocked that, if you ignore people for an entire year and then solicit them when the time comes, they don't want to give. Go figure.
You ignore. We've all experienced it. We've all experienced, if you've donated, right, you've experienced the great stewardship and then the not great stewardship, right? And it is frustrating. And it's funny. So my mom was in the hospital for a stint. And so, of course, I got her mail. And I'm going to tell you what, so much nonprofit correspondence, so much. And I asked her, I said, I want to learn, what is it from you as a donor that makes you continue to give, right? She's got more nonprofit calendars than you know what to do with, right? And she had a specific reason for every single nonprofit that she supported. And one of them was, they call me on my birthday. Another one was, she writes me handwritten notes and her handwriting reminds me of my mom's. And there was just a stream of answers like that. And it just took me back to, maybe we make it too difficult. Maybe it is as simple as a birthday call. Maybe it is as simple as just basic handwriting, and we can go into, and planning is good and strategy is good, right? But when we move into stewardship and we forget that people are humans, that is when we're not effective. Right. And the most effective stewardship is humanity and just basic thank you. And I know the orgs, I had 2 examples this week of people who thanked me for a donation, and they were outstanding. But they continue that. And even a few months ago, one of their acts of stewardship was, we posted this funny Facebook video. We didn't know if you saw it, but we wanted to share it with you. Oh, like you wanted to include me in that. You wanted to share that with me, right? It brought me joy. It really probably only took her 15, 20 seconds to send that email.
Sure. Well, to go back to humanity and on philanthropy and trends in philanthropy, one of the questions that I've been interested in asking you about, some causes, and I'm sure you've experienced that, are far easier to raise money for than others, right? Like that's just the reality. Let's acknowledge it. There's nothing like a fluffy little mammal with big eyes looking at you, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Are the philanthropic trends mirroring some of what's happening in society? And we've had some pretty massive changes, shifts in how we are and what we talk about and what's kind of front and center. So does philanthropy follow and do priorities of donors change with the environmental factors?
I would say, and people will disagree with me, and that's great. Like I love challenge, so bring it on. I really find people are pretty stuck in their ways as humans, right? And I haven't seen a lot of that. Like, I haven't talked with anybody recently that said, you know what, I've never supported immigration, but now I'm going to.
Mm-hmm.
And I wish that wasn't the case. And we all know that what I think happens there is that in order to really build that relationship, it takes time and it takes energy. Mm-hmm. And it's a runway, right? And nonprofits right now in so many sectors are just scrambling because of everything that we've been through lately. And so I don't know if the answer to your question is no, or if the answer to the question is maybe, but have we given it time, right? Have we given it the attention that we can? Because I know development staff don't have the time.
Sure.
To go, and they're trying to figure out what event are we going to have to make up this gap towards the end of the year, right? And so I don't know so much if it is a hard no, or if it is we just haven't had enough conversations and time to really see if that's the case or not, because it's only July.
Well, and just as I'm listening to you talk, and one of the topics that we often talk about is kind of long-term commitment, and you alluded to stewardship piece versus sort of one-off gifts, like very episodic giving. So is it more akin to emergency relief type of donations?
I would agree, definitely. I've done consulting with emergency relief orgs, and it is absolutely unprecedented what they can raise in a disaster. Right. And I always go back to them and say, okay, but we're not planning for this revenue next year, right? Like this is a one-off, right? And so you can't use it as a baseline, but absolutely there is that. And people too are very clear, right? When there is a disaster, where it is. Because of the media coverage, what is missing? What are the gaps? What do they need? And oftentimes they're actually being told directly, these are the organizations that are supporting and boots on the ground. And so what I'm seeing through that, though, and have over the years, is that, yes, of course, an incredible spike, right? Unbelievable. But people are very, very clear on what is needed and how to go about it.
Yeah. I think it was tsunami year. I mean, talking about the follies, huge, incredible spike, wonderful generosity, huge crisis. But then setting that as the bar for the following year, like that's a little bit laughable, right? Like, unless you have something on that scale.
Yeah, you can't plan, natural disasters. And also too, it often reminds me of when you receive sort of like just a surprise donation, right? And I think if anybody's been in nonprofit development for long enough, it's been, I've experienced that where, oh, congrats, you exceeded revenue goal, by $200,000 because of this $200,000 gift. Let's up your revenue goal, for next year.
Yeah.
And include that $200,000. And when I work with orgs, I'm very clear on, like, we're not including that. Like that is a one-off, right? And so, talk about setting your development staff up for misery for an entire year, hoping that, there's going to be another, windfall or whatever. When they happen, great, but we're not doing carryover.
Yeah. Don't go spending that money.
No, please don't. Exactly.
Well, what are some other kind of missteps or, anywhere from missteps to massive mistakes that organizations are making, setting unrealistic goals or not setting goals at all? But what are some other giving and philanthropy related missteps that you see most frequently?
Yeah, I think there's, and I've written about this, there's such a misstep in communication. And the two words that, like, this hill I will die on, the two words that I cannot stand in nonprofit communications is help us, which immediately drives a wedge between the donor and the organization, right? You're not a partner. When you say help us, you're not a partner. You're a donor, right? But donors want to be your partner.
Yeah.
They want to know what you want and they want to know what you need, right? And the more that we can bring them along and use language that does that, like, I received an email this week and it was one of the two that I mentioned earlier, and it was so fabulous. And the organization always does a top-notch job. And the line in the email was, the subject line was, because of you, Sarah was able to go to camp, right? It immediately tied me to where my money went, right? It was empowering. And the language wasn't help us send more kids to camp. That is all about the org. Yet time and time and time and time and time again, we even see it on LinkedIn all the time. Help us, help us, help us. And I think that as far as a misstep is concerned, that is just such a quick fix, right? It doesn't take a lot. It does not take a lot to change words. And then to actually bring that donor in as a partner. And I think oftentimes too, nonprofits don't want to really share the need as much. And donors want to solve your problems.
Yeah.
They want to be the hero, and they should be. The nonprofit's not the hero. The mission recipient and the donors are the heroes.
Right.
And so a lot of times I think there's a misstep in that I think nonprofits don't want to look as if they're failing or as if they've somehow missed something, and that's okay. Right? Nobody, your org is not perfect, and donors want to give to the org that has a need. And I'm not as motivated to give to an org that's perfect. Right. Do they need me? No, they're perfect. Right. So we'll just let them continue being perfect. And I'll go over here and give my donor dollars to the org that has outlined for me exactly what they need, why they need it, and how it's going to make a difference. And so I think too, there's communications, and then there's just also not being transparent enough.
Yeah.
Just not wanting to show that there is a need. And then I also think too, I was thinking this morning about funders and just grantors and all of that. Like, I see so much in communication, like even around grants, like, what do you need? What do you need? And I just wish we could expand the conversation to, if you could have anything, what would you want? What would you ask for? because I think we often go into conversations and we ask for too little, when actually that scarcity mindset doesn't serve us long term. And so if we can walk into a place of, and are challenged to do so and comfortable to do so, yes, our organization may need new refrigerators. That is our immediate need. But in order for us to 10x the work that we want to do for this community, we need refrigerators. But let me tell you about what 10x looks like. And oftentimes, I feel like the conversation stops at refrigerators. Mm-hmm. And so nonprofits are constantly working in a, what do I need right now? Instead of being able to really dream and bring people into that for incredible growth.
You know, the more I listen to you and the more, you know, sort of thinking and talking to others in our space, I mean, it's really just keeping it real, right? Like, here's the realities. It's not tap dancing. It's not spinning. It's not trying to present something that isn't. It seems so easy, and yet it's really not simple.
It's not. I think, especially from my own experience, I made it very hard in the beginning because I wanted to show up in a way that made the organization look perfect. Mm-hmm. And that's just not reality, right? And I remember I was with an org and we needed a new roof. And so I started having conversations and we needed a new metal roof. And I started having conversations, and this is where it switched for me and where I learned around, you know, could we partner? Basically, you know, can you donate a brand new roof? Because we need a roof. Because in order for us to keep the food pantry and the soup kitchen and the dental clinic and the medical clinic and all of that running, we have to have a good roof, right? And the conversations just weren't going anywhere. And so it was a rainy morning, and our roof was leaking terribly. And we changed all the language from like soup kitchen to cafe. Everything was rooted in dignity. And so there were just leaks everywhere in the cafe. And so I called the president of the metal company. And I said, do you want to come over and have lunch? And he thought that was odd, but he said, okay. And so he came over and we had lunch in the cafe amongst our neighbors who had need for food. And he saw firsthand all the leaks. And within 2 weeks, we were given a brand new metal roof. But the conversations that I was having with him were going nowhere, mm-hmm. right? Under the umbrella of, oh, we just have this need and everything else is great. And, you know, help us. But then when he sat there firsthand and he saw those leaks, it was different. But that required moving to a place of vulnerability, mm-hmm. and showing him, this is the need. This is the reality. The reality is we feed 5,000 of our neighbors every single month, right? And we want to continue that, right? But how do we do that when our roof is falling apart? Like, that's the most basic need. And then 2 weeks later, we had a brand new roof. And yeah, but I had to embrace getting a little more real.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I mean, it's genius to invite him. And also, obviously, you've built rapport and relationship where the same day you were able to get him to come over.
Yeah. Yeah. I think he was curious. You know, I think he was like, why is she inviting me? But it did teach me that we don't need to show people perfect. If we were perfect, we just wouldn't exist as an org. Right. And there wouldn't be a need. And so, yeah.
I often talk about tension, having been on both sides of marketing and development side of the house. Marketing is all about presenting achievements and accomplishments and all the wonderful things. And development, if there's no unmet need, there's no case for support.
Correct.
And the two can kind of run in tension and counter to one another.
They can. And especially when I see the development and marketing role combined, I wonder, I've never been in that place. And I do wonder what that conflict must be like. And I have sent things back for marketing that just say, this is too perfect.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and it's not you, I'm not asking you to create content that's not quality.
Sure.
That's that's not a quality issue. It is this does not convict a donor that we have a need.
Right.
This would not move them because it looks too done. I'm not saying misspell words and don't align things.
Yes, of course not.
What I'm saying is, we don't want to misuse photos. We don't want to not be honest, right? But there is a balance between how do we share the story? And so I think too, one way that I've approached that is let's just bring the story, let's bring the story to the donor, yes. Right? This is where it started. This was the difference, the donor relationship made, and this is where we are now. And let's let them see themselves in that process. They can envision themselves in that. But if they can't envision themselves in any marketing material, then it has, I just send it back.
Yeah. Well, and with marketing, I think sometimes you end up with marketers that don't have familiarity with fundraising. So I think that's kind of at a human level, exposure and teaching and learning is how you bridge that.
It is. I was struggling with a marketing angle, and we had received a large donation, and we were able to purchase a brand new box truck, right? Mm-hmm. And we were all around, what's the stewardship going to be of this? And marketing was going one way, I was going another way. And so I said, look, I'm going to ask for forgiveness on this in advance, but I need you to come with me this afternoon. And so that afternoon, we actually had the donor come over and look at the truck. And the donor looked at me and said, in all of my years of giving, nobody has ever invited me to see where my money went. You are the first. I am actually looking at where my money went. And it was an unlock too for marketing, right? Like it is as basic as that. And so how do we weave that sort of stewardship into our marketing? And it was a game changer.
Yeah. Well, Jen, it was wonderful to talk to you about philanthropy and giving. And before we say goodbye, one last question. When
Sure.
You're not doing all nonprofity things and not chugging Diet Coke, what are some things? Somebody used the word leisure activities, which kind of made me laugh.
Yeah,
leisure.
Leisure.
What are some things that you enjoy to do outside of your working time?
I love spending time with my family, and my twins they've launched, like they're on their own, and so don't have as much time with them, nor should I, as I have. But I really value every single bit of that I can. I love my backyard hammock and reading back there. I love what we've created back there. It is maybe close to leisure a little. And then I love to travel. I go. And most of the time I'm in Puerto Rico if I'm not on the mainland. And so that island has my heart. And so if you can't find me here, you'll find me there.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for being here. And it's a pleasure to meet you face to face. And thank you for all your insights.
Thank you.